Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us today to talk about the repositioning strategy for the Hammond Village community. I'm Ivory Matthews. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for Columbia Housing, and I'm going to turn it over to Cindy Herrera. She's going to provide you an overview of what our plans are, and then we're going to have some time at the end for Q&A.
Great. Good afternoon. My name is Cindy Herrera, and I'm the Chief Development Officer for Columbia Housing, and I'm so happy to have you all with us this afternoon. We're going to talk to you something called the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program. Ms. Lee, do you want to give a few housekeeping instructions before we get started?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Just to give everybody a couple quick tips on how to get the most out of today's presentation. We are recording the session, and we'll make this available on our YouTube channel within the next couple of days, along with the Q&A that will follow the presentation. If you think of any questions while you're watching the presentation, please put them in the chat box. You can access the chat from the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. And we've got a couple messages going in there already. So make sure and drop anything that you'd like to ask there. And we would be glad to answer that information for you at the appropriate time. We do have everyone on mute. If you would keep yourselves on mute, that would be great. Just helps to make it easier for everyone to hear and understand. And I think that's about it. Let's say if you have any questions, just put those in the chat box and we will get them answered for you after the presentation.
Great. So again, we're talking to you this afternoon about something called the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program. It's referred to as RAD. So what exactly is RAD? It's a program that HUD created back in 2012. It is considered a demonstration program. And what RAD does is it removes public housing communities from the public housing program, and it converts those to project-based Section 8 contracts for the properties. By going through this RAD process, it enables the properties to be able to secure capital or funding to be able to rehab the property or to do new construction. So why does RAD exist, and why did HUD come up with this program? Well, what HUD realized is that across the country, the public housing communities need over $60 billion in repairs. HUD refers to these repairs as capital needs. What's happened over the years is that the funding that we receive at the Housing Authority is based on what Congress provides each year in the budget, in the federal budget. Unfortunately, over the years, Congress has not provided enough money for us to be able to keep up with these capital needs. Because we have not had enough money from Congress, we've had to make really tough choices about things that we can repair because we don't have the money to fix everything. Or in some cases, we've had to demolish public housing. What RAD does is it gives us a way in which we can go out and get private money that will allow us to be able to rehab or repair or rebuild housing without having to get additional money from Congress, which they have not been providing anywhere. So what does RAD mean to you as a resident? Well, first of all, we want to reassure you that because of RAD, you will not lose any housing assistance, and you are not going to be rescreened as part of the RAD conversion process. What RAD does is it will let us get private money to make the repairs, but it still is going to receive money from HUD. This money is going to be in the form of a subsidy that will basically let us manage your property under the project-based voucher program instead of public housing. RAD does require that the property would continue to be owned or controlled by a public or a nonprofit organization. So this chart here talks a little bit about what RAD really does on a more specific basis. First of all, before RAD, as we mentioned, the properties are not funded at 100% as they're in public housing. But once we convert a property after RAD, the properties then have a more stable funding platform. Right now, we don't know how much money Congress is going to give us each year, so it's hard for us to plan. Once we convert to RAD, we will know what the rents are and how much money we have each year. In the public housing program, right now, we could not go out and borrow money to make repairs. But when we convert to RAD and we take the property out of public housing, then we can go out into the private market and we can secure loans and we can raise equity from investors that will allow us to be able to make repairs. Currently, the funding that we receive does not give us enough money to keep up with deteriorated conditions. When we convert the property under RAD, by going out and being able to get private money, we can make repairs to be able to have the properties be in much better condition. And finally, under the public housing program, you cannot move from Hammond Village. If you were to move, you would no longer have any housing assistance. In other words, you can't take your assistance with you. Once we convert the property to RAD, that will change. And after you've lived in the property under RAD for 1 year, then you will be able to request a tenant-based voucher under something called choice mobility. So that's something that you'll be able to do that you cannot do currently as public housing. How does RAD affect your rent? This is always one of the first questions that residents ask us when we start talking about RAD. Basically, it has a very minimal impact on most of your rent. The project-based voucher program basically calculates rent the same way that the public housing program does. So you will continue to pay 30% of your adjusted income for your portion of the rent. So most residents will not ever see a rent increase under a RAD conversion. However, it's important to point out that if you are paying a flat rent in public housing, you may have a rent increase because the voucher program does not have a flat rent. So if you have a rent increase, it would, however, be done over time. It would be phased in over time. If your rent was going to increase more than 10%, or you had to pay more than $25 per month, then the new rent would be phased in over a 3-year period. So those rent increases would be gradual and not all at one time. Now, the RAD process is very lengthy, okay? It takes about 2 to 3 years. So this isn't going to happen tomorrow. This is kind of just a little chart here that shows what this process is. We have to work very closely with HUD because HUD right now basically controls Hammond Village. The Housing Authority manages and owns it, but it's got a lot of restrictions from the federal government. So the first step is the strategic planning. We've done our strategic planning over the last couple of years in which we have looked at all of the properties, we've assessed the properties, we've tried to determine what's the best thing to do with each of these properties. Once we did the strategic planning, our next step is what we're starting today. And this is the RAD application. So in order for us to submit a RAD application, HUD requires us to have 2 meetings with all of the tenants. And so today is our first meeting in which we're talking to you about what RAD is and why we're going to submit a RAD application. We're going to have a second meeting on October the 19th, and we're going to talk to you more specifically at that time about what we're going to do at Hamilton Village. Once we submit the application to HUD, then we receive a commitment from HUD that basically says you've been approved and you can start down the RAD process. And the RAD process requires us to do a whole lot of all these other things you see here. We have to put together a financing plan, and we get this commitment from HUD. We have to go through a closing, and then we get to the part where we start the rehab. So this process, as we anticipate it right now, we hope to have the application submitted by the 1st of November. We hope to have approval from HUD either by the end of the year or shortly thereafter, early next year. And then we would anticipate that we would close the financing. We'd be able to go out and get the money in order to make the repairs at Hammond Village sometime probably by next July or August. And we would actually be starting repairs sometime next fall, just about a year from now. And those repairs would probably take close to 18 months or so as we go through the repairs, because what we're looking at doing at Hamilton Village is substantial rehab when we'll be making major repairs to the property. Most importantly, what are our next steps? The first thing is do not move. Nobody should move, okay? We will continue to schedule meetings throughout the RAD process to keep you informed of the plans for your community. And most importantly is we want you to join us for the next meeting on October the 19th, when we will share with you more specific plans about what kind of work we will be doing on and for Hammond Village. So I'm going to end the presentation here, and we're going to open it up to questions and try to answer any questions that you have today.
Ms. Herrera, you got people excited, getting some text questions and questions in chat also. One of the first questions is, where can I take my voucher? Can I use that outside of Richland County? People are excited to know how that's going to work.
Yes, you will be able to use a voucher outside of Richland County. You'll be able to choose where you want to go. Now, let me start by saying that at Hamilton Village, we intend to do substantial rehab. We are not going to demolish and rebuild Hamilton Village. We believe that after we did the assessment with architects and engineers, we believe that Hammond Village can be substantially rehabbed. Now, when I say substantial rehab, that means everything. New kitchens, new baths, new floors, new doors, new washers and dryers in the units, dishwashers. We'll be doing basically gutting the units and building new units within those buildings. This was based on an assessment by our architects and our engineers that said the buildings themselves are still in substantially good condition. So our hope is for Hammond Village, that could change as we continue to do more detailed assessments, but right now we anticipate doing substantial rehab. Obviously, based on the amount of construction that we would be doing, we will be having to move people off of the property, and some of you will get the option of a voucher. If you want to take a voucher, then you'll be able to do so, and you will be able to use that voucher outside of Richland County. All of this will be about choice. Every resident has a guaranteed right to return to the property, as I mentioned, with no screening. And so you will have a right to stay at Hammond Village, but if you choose not to, you will also have the option to elect to move on a permanent basis and not come back or stay at Hammond Village. So that will be entirely up to you. And we'll be providing you with a lot more information down the road about all those choices that you will have in front of you.
So that is really exciting. I kind of heard something in there. I just want to make sure that I heard right. Now, if I love that location because it's such a great location, Hammond is downtown, it's close to the river, it's close to Dutch Square, I'll be able to go back there is what you're saying.
That's correct. And some of you may never move off the site because we anticipate we will be doing the rehab construction in phases. So we will probably vacate a couple of buildings at a time, and we'll do that work. And then we'll move people back into those newly done units, and then we'll continue with the next units. We anticipate that Hammond Village will be done in a phased approach.
Great. Sort of as an aside here, we have a new property manager at Hammond Village, Miss Ebony Mobley. She just joined us, gosh, a week or two ago. I just wanted to give her an opportunity to introduce herself real quick, if you're okay with that.
Yes, that'd be great. Ebony, please
everybody
do.
can kind of see, maybe she can tell us how to get in touch with her. Miss
Hi.
Mobley. Hey, Miss Mobley.
How you doing? Hey, Lee. My name is Ebony Mobley. I am the new manager. I'm actually, today it makes it 3 weeks that I'm with the Columbia Housing Authority, so I'm super, super excited. I'm always available to be reached. You can reach me at emobbley@columbiahousingsc.org. If you're not computer savvy, you rather just pick up the phone and need me for anything, you can reach me at 803-865-0241. And I'm available Monday through Friday, pretty much anytime.
Right, we're going to put your contact information in the chat box also. So if anybody wants to get it there, they can.
Yes, definitely. So,
Welcome.
and I am, although my office is at another property within the Columbia Housing Authority, I am multiple times during the week, I am at Hammond Village.
Okay. Other questions?
What about, I've got some more questions coming in about the vouchers, Ms. Herrera.
Okay.
What about folks who don't work and are on zero income? How will they be affected? Are they going to be able to get a voucher too?
Yes, your income does not affect the ability to get a voucher. If you have zero income, you are still eligible for a voucher. The only time you might not be eligible for a voucher is if your income is too high. And so some of you that may have very high incomes, we would talk to you separately one-on-one to talk about what your housing options may be. But anybody with zero income is still eligible to receive a voucher.
Folks want to know what kind of work is actually going to be done at Hammond. What will the renovations involve?
Well, we're excited to tell you to come back to our October 19th meeting when we will give you very specifics on what we're going to be doing, but it will be a major renovation. We'll be doing major renovations to the property. And we're very excited. We think it's going to build a beautiful new community that will be a great place for everybody. The questions?
We got
I
so
want to
many.
just.
I was just saying that we had a lot of questions at the meeting before, so we want to make sure that everyone is getting their information in there. If there's any questions at all, please let us know. We'll definitely make sure you get those answered.
Right, and as I mentioned, we are required before we submit the application to HUD to start this process to have 2 meetings with the residents. And so today is just the beginning of the process. And so at our second meeting, we're going to share more with you about the specifics of what we will be doing at Hammond Village. And we'll be sharing with you, some of those thoughts and a little bit more about what the timeline will look like, what the timing will be. I know it seems very early, and we had some people say, why are you talking to us so early if this isn't going to happen for a while? Well, the real answer to that is because HUD tells us we have to. So we're starting the process very early. It's important that all of you understand that the property is going to be going through this RAD process and what that will mean for the property and for you. And to make sure that you understand that you are protected under the RAD program and nobody will be displaced. Everybody will be assured that they continue to have housing, either at the new Hammond Village that we're going to develop, or you will have options for other housing if you so choose. That'll really be up to each of you. It's really a lot about choice. As I mentioned, while you live in public housing, you don't have a lot of choice, because if you were to move out of Hammond Village today, you wouldn't have any housing assistance. But under the RAD program, we're going to give you options of what you can do going forward.
Ms. Herrera, we've got a couple folks that have just joined, and they're asking about how they apply. Can you explain that this is we're going to do most of the heavy lifting for everybody?
Right. There's nothing that you have to apply for right now. As we go forward with this process, when we get to the point where we have to start vacating some units so that we can do the construction work, all of you will have an opportunity at that point in time. And if in fact you choose that you want to take a voucher and you want to leave Hammond Village and not come back, that will be a choice that you have. And we will provide you with a voucher at that point in time and be able to assist you at that point in time. You do not need to apply for anything. This is a RAD program in which your current property will convert to vouchers, and then you'll have the option after that. And even if we know that right now, it's a lot of people with vouchers are having a hard time finding good landlords and good housing because the rental market is very tight. We are working every day with landlords. We have a landlord liaison who works with landlords all over the county. And but it will also be, what I want to remind you is that you can stay at Hammond Village, and after 1 year, you can choose a voucher at that time. And any time in the future, once you come back to Hammond Village and the RAD conversion has occurred, every year you will have the option of requesting a voucher. And you will go at the top of a list called the Choice Mobility List, and the next available vouchers would go to the people on the Choice Mobility List before they would go to anybody on that very long voucher waiting list. You all know we always have a very long voucher waiting list. Well, under Choice Mobility and the RAD program, you go to the top of that list before other people. And so you'll have that option. So it may be that you think you want a voucher initially, And then you start looking around out there and you really can't find anything that's going to be as nice as the new units that we're going to have for you at Hammond Village, because they're going to be very nice. And you may decide, you know what, I really like it, I'm going to stay here. Well, then maybe you decide again next year or a couple years. You'll have a chance again at any time. Once this is converted under RAD, you will be able to request a choice mobility voucher after the first year. You have to stay in the RAD unit for 1 year, but then after that, you'll be able to request to be placed on the choice mobility list.
That's
So
really
that's something
exciting.
you can keep in mind. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Got a message from somebody who's concerned about the moving process when that time gets here. How will we handle that? Are we just going to have people move themselves, or
No,
what are
we will
gonna do?
provide full relocation assistance for everybody. We will have a relocation specialist who would be at the property, who will be available to assist everybody and coordinate all the moves. We will be providing the packing materials, the boxes, and everything you need. You will then have a choice of either having our moving company move you, or you can do a self-move, in which case you'll be paid a flat fee that's based on a schedule that the federal government gives us if you choose to move yourself. And then we will also reimburse any costs that might be related to transferring any utilities. So all of your relocation costs will be provided, will be paid for you. And then again, we will assist you. We will provide you with comparable housing units that you can look at. So we will assist you. If you're elderly or disabled and you want packing assistance, we will have the movers actually do the packing for you if you'd like that assistance. So there will be a whole lot of assistance that's provided to you. We'll have a relocation specialist that provides counseling and advisory services to you, answers all your questions about what your housing options are, provide you with comparable housing. We will be doing all of that to assist you through the process.
What if I move to another unit on site? Will I still get the benefit of those services?
If you move to another unit on site, we will have the moving company that will be doing that moving. You will not have a choice of a self-move. But if we move you to another unit on site, first of all, we're going to do the phasing so you only have to move once, so that we will move you from your unit you're in, you'll go to a brand new unit that's already been renovated at the time that you have to move. And you will be moved to the most appropriate size unit that we have available. I know some of you may be in the wrong size units right now. One of the requirements of RAD is that we do have to move people to the right size units. So you won't necessarily stay in your same unit, but you certainly will stay in a unit at Hammond Village if that's what you choose to do. We're going to do everything possible to only move people once into the newly renovated unit.
And again, just a reminder for everybody when this process you think will start.
We do not believe that the moving process will start till about a year from now. As I showed you on the slide, the process is lengthy, and it takes some time to get all the approvals from HUD. And so the first thing we're doing right now is we're working on the plans and the specifications of the work that's going to be done. And then after that, we have to do some other things. And then eventually we will be able to go through the process with HUD. Once we get our application approved, we then have 6 months to submit what's called the plan, the renovation plan and the financing plan. And then we submit that to HUD, and that may take a couple more months to get that approved. So I'm anticipating we're about a year away before we would start the process.
Now I got a question. I don't know if somebody's planning a party or having some fun out there, but do I have to stay in good standing with my lease to qualify for all these things coming down the pike?
Excellent question. And the answer to that is absolutely yes. Okay. We will continue to manage. Hammond Village will remain as public housing, but it's very important to remember that you must comply with your lease, which means you must follow all the rules and you must pay your rent. If you're behind in your rent, please go get some of the money that's available to help with rent payment right now and get caught up in your rent. Because if you're not current in your rent, it could impact your ability to go into a voucher. So that's very important to remember, that you have to continue to comply with your lease because it can impact your ability to have a voucher if you're not in good standing.
Good to know.
Other questions? Oh,
I did want to just remind everyone that we will have this up on our YouTube channel, Columbia Housing's YouTube channel, within the next probably 24 hours, but definitely 48 hours, along with this Q&A. So if anybody wants to go back and review some of the things that we've talked about tonight, or if you've got a neighbor that wasn't on, please let them know that we want to put this out there, that we're anxious to get the information to everyone, and that we'll make that available on a couple different platforms as we get them processed.
great. We want to thank all of you for joining us today and remind you to join us again on October the 19th. We'll have more information on that day, specifically about the plans for Hammond, and we'll also have a timeline laid out that shows you specifically what the time frame would be for us to move forward. This is the very beginning of the process, and it seems like a long way away, but a year from now we'll be here before we know it. So everybody just keep that in mind. We will continue to keep you informed of what's going on, and we'll go from there. Any other questions? If not, thank you, and we'll look forward to talking to you again on October the 19th.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.